Okay, so I want to get into Judges. So what's going on is that the people of Israel made it to the promised land. And what's happened is they're falling off, like they're sinning, they're forgetting their covenant with God, they're not teaching their children, great grandchildren, the traditions that they learn, none of the songs, they're not following it. So they're losing their religion or faith. So every time they like sin against the God of Israel, God punishes them. The people of Israel sin, God punishes them by like having another nation rule over them. They cry to the God of Israel. God saves them. The God of Israel saves them. If they be good for like several years, and then after that they slip again, and it keeps on going back and forth. What I have to say about Judges is like, the thing is like, all that time they was through the wilderness for 40 years, all the time that they was traveling on a journey to the promised land, is like they was taught by the God of Israel to obey God, follow God's rules, and do everything for God. But I think the problem with the people of Israel is they had no love for themselves. They had no love for themselves. They had no discipline for themselves, and they wasn't giving their self-love. So how can the God of Israel expect them to obey him if they can't keep discipline within themselves? Like everything was like for the God of Israel, to praise the God of Israel. But I think the story is really having discipline in yourself. I think that's the real story. If you don't have discipline in yourself, nothing is gonna help you, basically. So if you have self-love and you have self-discipline, it's easier for you not to fall under. But if you're following a God and you don't know yourself, of course you're going to keep on falling back, and you're going to be slipping back into sin, and you're going to always need to be saved. Until you learn how to save yourself, you're going to always need to be saved. The God of Israel punished them because they didn't obey God. They didn't kill off everybody when they got to the promised land. They let the other nations stay, kept them as slaves when they got stronger than them. And they also married their sons to their daughters and their daughters to their sons. Everything that the God of Israel told them not to do. After Joshua died and they start worshiping other gods, what God did was hand them over to other nations. And other nations like reigned over them for like years. And then every time like 8 years or so would go by, they would pray to God to be saved. Caleb's nephew was one person that was called to save them. The Spirit of God was with him, and he saved them, and he took them on. It's just like they kept on getting saved over and over and over, so they was like under the command of people. It's like, okay, for instance, like say the USA, the United States of America government, like every 4 years, president is in term, and then when that term is over, that president either gets reelected or someone else comes in, right? Because supposedly the people of the United States wants a leader, supposedly, but I never wrote it, so whatever. So that's the word, that they need a leader, like who's gonna save us. It's like, no, it's not who's gonna save you, it's you gotta save yourselves. Congregation of when it was first established, all those people died off. So it's a new generation, and that generation doesn't know God, doesn't know the God of Israel. That new generation doesn't know what the God of Israel has done for their people, because their parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, no one told them. So they keep on sinning, and God said, the God of Israel said that he left these people there. He's not helping them no more. He's keeping these people that they left, they stay alive in their nations, because it's to teach the new generations a lesson. The new generations that never went to war and don't have no war experience. But listen, all this teaching lessons and stuff, you gotta teach these people how to love themselves. Let these people know thyself. Meditate and stuff. They don't have, like, these people, all they know is war. That's how they get their point across. That's all they know. They know war. They don't know kindness. All this running around, all this killing people, no one's telling, the God of Israel, the leaders of Israel, no one is telling the people of Israel to love yourself, be kind to each other. God said that these people are stubborn. The evil never went nowhere. Well, how do you expect the evil to go somewhere if they're not learning to, like, be kind? They're doing evil. So of course they're gonna be evil people. You can't just kill people for no reason and just, rape women and children and kill, cut off heads of children and expect these people to be loyal, expect these people to be kind to each other or even themselves. You have to really, how to treat somebody the way you treat them. How it's a reflection of yourself, how you feel about yourself. So these people are doing all these things, and then the God of Israel keep on being surprised that every time one of the leaders die, they go back to being evil. These people are evil. That's all you're teaching them. You're not teaching them how to be kind. And that's what they're missing. When they worship other gods, they worship Baal's god and whose god is Asherah's goddess. So that means that gods could be male or female. Low-key, I knew that already, but it's nice to see it in the Bible that it's, Deborah. So Deborah's Laphadat's wife. Deborah was a prophet, and she judged over Israel at the time. The people of Israel went to her for matters of justice. But that just reminded me, the image in the courthouses that you see in the United States is the blindfolded lady, the lady of justice. I wonder if that's Deborah. There was no signs of respect towards women through this whole time. Now in the book of Judges, they're just saying that she rised up from being a prophet to being a judge. But I'm thinking the reason why a woman was able to raise up is because they haven't killed off all the people. They worshiping gods and goddesses of other nations. And I think that the reason why a woman was able to judge over Israel is because they got that from other nations, and other nations have females that ruled. So that's how I'm thinking Deborah became the judge, was able to be the judge at that time. When Deborah was judge over Israel at this time, she had waged a war between Sisera's kingdom, Sisera the king, and Deborah had victory over the nation. But Sisera, he escaped, he ran away. And when he came to a tent, the tent of Jael, which is, Jael is, whose wife is she? Heber's wife. And Heber, she's a Kenite. She's a Kenite. So Jael, the Kenite, she told Sisera, she said, to come in my tent. I'll help you out. So when he came in her tent, he let her know, I'm thirsty. So instead of giving him water or anything, she gave him milk. And when he said, she gave him a blanket. So she treated Sisera nice. He felt comfortable. He said he's going to sleep because she made him feel so peaceful, and she was such a good host. So when he was falling asleep, he told her to stay in the front of the tent, and if anybody passes, tell no one that you saw me. So she said she would do that. So he fell asleep. But when he fell asleep, she had got a hammer, and she put it through his temple to the ground. So it went through his head to the ground. She put the hammer and the peg all the way through. So when people came looking for him, Ezra, she told him, here goes the man that you was looking for. And she showed the man that him laid out dead. Because she did this and because she helped Deborah, they made a song about her. And this is they're starting to respect women more, I noticed, with Judges. Okay, so after Deborah and Jael did this thing and they helped the people of Israel, what happened was the people of Israel, they started doing evil stuff again. So God punished them again, the people of Israel yet again, and let this nation Midian, the nation, rule over them for 7 years. And of course, again, the people begged and cried, and God finally came. He told them, I took you out of Israel, I rescued you from slavery, I told you to obey me, and this is what you do. Now you calling on me? So after hearing their cries, he called upon someone named Gideon. Right? Gideon was in the field, in his father's field, and an angel came to him, and he had to go through the process again. He didn't believe it was God, because this new generation, they don't know it was God. The God of Israel had to prove himself to Gideon. So Gideon was okay, this is God, so I have to, do what God tells me. So God told him to take down Baal's altar. And the next day the people asked, who did this? So he finally said, I did it, or someone told on him, and it was, it was confirmed that Gideon is the one that did it. So now he's like raging war upon these people, between Gideon and the Midians, because he's trying to take his people out there. He's trying to save his people that's been in slavery for like 7 years because they disobeyed God. The God of Israel is with Gideon. So Gideon, after this, Gideon got an army together, and the army Gideon got together was so huge. God said to Gideon, like, there's too many of these people, like you have to let some of them go. If I give the Midians over to you like this, everyone will say that you guys did it yourself. They would take all the credit and they would have no credit for me. So God wanted credit for this. He didn't want the people to take all the credits for themselves, because if they were to take all the credits for themselves, they won't praise God for saving them. They will praise Gideon, or the army, for saving them. So Gideon did some deductions where finally he was left with about like 300 men, and those 300 men took over that nation that had them, that was enslaving them basically, and they won victory. So after Gideon dies, and Gideon actually has 70 sons. He has 70 sons that he from him. That's a lot of sons. He had a lot of wives. It says before that Gideon was even like cool in his tune. Like when he just died, the people went back to doing evil. Like these people, like they need somebody to lead them or rule them, because if they don't rule them, that they will go crazy. It's kind of like the thought how the U.S. government has, that they think that if there's nobody ruling over the nation, that people would go crazy. But I say nay. I think the opposite. I don't think that's true. Out of those 70 sons that Gideon had, Abimelech, I picked the word up here somewhere, but he was one of the sons. Gideon, he had a lot of wives. So Abimelech is the son of a prostitute, right? So he goes to the leaders of the people of Israel. He tells them, hey, do y'all prefer to be ruled over 70 men, which was him and his brothers, because Gideon's his son, that was their inheritance, because their father died, they was the rulers. So they was ruled by 70 men. So he went to the people where his mother was from, and told that part of the Israelites, you rather get ruled over 70 men or just one, me. So he started the people, so the leaders agreed that he could become the leader, so he started ruling over those people. So Abimelech ruled over Israel for 3 years, and after that, like, God started some beef or something with him and the leaders to like take him out for whatever reason. Gal, he arrived with his family, and he moves into that area, and one day they gather in the fields, and what they're celebrating the temple, or God's temple. It's a feast, they're eating and drinking, and this is Judges chapter 9, by the way, I'm reading. So they're eating and drinking. So at this gathering, Gal, this new guy in town, he starts talking about Abimelech, right? He starts talking about their leader. So then the guy that he was telling in bed, he goes tell, and he kind of like set up Gal. But he basically goes to Gal, and he like chased him out. He sends his troops to kill him because he was talking trash. So he's like, I'm here. He's like, I'm here. So what now? Like, what do you have to say now? And of course, Gal, he had to flee because he was outnumbered. When he took over when he overpowered Gal, kept Gal out the city, he still needed to take down the city because the leaders had went against him. So he took down their towers, and he was able to get through the city gates. Abimelech, when his anger, he killed all 70 of his brothers. He killed all his brothers because he wanted to be the only one left to rule. So he killed all his brothers. So when he got to like this tower of strength, a woman looked down on him. She like looked out a window, I guess, or she was over him, but I'm guessing like a window, and she had a stone, and she dropped it on his head, and she crushed him, but he didn't die right away. He saw that a woman had done this to him, so he told his men, the men and his troops, he said, kill me with a sword. He doesn't want them to say like a woman was the one that killed him, because I'm guessing being killed by a woman was a great disgrace after Jael did that to Sisera. No man wants to be killed by a woman. So he had, before he died completely, he just told his men to just finish off the job, because he didn't want to be known in history from a woman being the one that took him down. So after his death and after he died, the people went back to doing evil because they need a leader. Without a leader, they're just evil people. They can't. I wouldn't even say they're evil. They're not evil people. I wouldn't say they're evil people. They just don't follow God's commandments if there's no leader. They will only follow the commandments if there's a leader. And it's probably why we have a president of the United States and we have that chain of command in place, because it ain't that we will be bad people without it. It's just that we wouldn't follow the laws and we wouldn't follow government without it. So there was like a lot of, during Judges, there was a lot of leaders that rose up from the people of Israel to help them. And when that person died, the people would go right back. So like I said, the book of Judges is about basically keeping the covenant of God, keeping the commandments of God, which the Israelites couldn't do. So because of all this happened, because of all this people rising up, there was no king at this time. At this point now, there's nobody there. There's no leader, there's no king. So a Levite who is, who's living as a stranger in the hill country, he comes there, he meets a girl, a concubine. They argued a lot. So because they argued a lot, the woman wound up leaving him and she went back home to her father's house. So this Levite sets out to go look for his wife. So when he looks for his wife, he arrives at the father's house and tells the father he wants his wife back. So the father tells the Levite to, stay and be his guest and leave in the morning. He agrees to stay as the guest. They eat, they drink, they had a good time. The next morning he was ready to go. The father convinced him to stay again. And the father does this for several times. So finally, the daughter said that she's ready to leave, so the father lets him go. The father, for some reason, didn't want his daughter to go with this guy for whatever reason. He doesn't really say. Maybe he sensed there was something off, or he was never going to see his daughter again. But he was just stalling the Levite. He didn't want his daughter to really go with him. And they said that they was fighting. So I'm guessing he probably abused his daughter. I'm guessing, because why else would he try to stall? He didn't want his daughter to go. But eventually his daughter said that she wanted to go. So he had with him a servant too. So they riding through the town, so they needed to stop and rest. When they finally left the father's house, they wanted to stop and rest. So they was going to stop at this one place, but the Levite said no, because that's not his people. He'd rather stay in this other town. So when he stayed at this other town, he stayed in the center, the city area, and it's a busy area. And back in those days, when you see a stranger sitting there, somebody from that town was supposed to act, or that city was supposed to ask a stranger if they would like to come to their house to stay the night, and be a good hostess to that person. But he stayed there. The Levite and his wife and the servant stayed there all night, and nobody came and offered them to stay with them. So this old man, they saw an old man, and this old man was like, "Oh, what you doing out here?" And he told them nobody came to help us, nobody asked us, offered us to stay at their house. So the old man said, "You know what? Yeah, if y'all will be no trouble, y'all could stay at my house." So the old man lives with him and his daughter, his young daughter. And so the Levite, the servant, and the Levite's wife, they all in the house. And these group of men, this gang of men comes knocking at the door, and they told the old man to bring out the Levite men, because they wanted to have sex with him. They wanted to rape this guy, right? So the father says, "No, please don't do this. Don't be so evil. Don't be so disgusting and vile. Don't do this to this guy. There's a woman here. I have a daughter." So the old man tries to offer up even his daughter. And I'm thinking this is the part, because I'm thinking really? You're gonna offer up your daughter? Because obviously men having sex with men is not a strange thing. It's probably frowned upon, but men obviously have sex with men. So what makes you think that it would be any better for your daughter to be raped? It ain't one person wanted to have sex with your daughter. They wanted to gang rape her, you knew their attention. You would offer up your daughter's body for a stranger, for a guy, for a strong guy. If a guy get raped, I'm sure he would be just as crushed if a woman got raped. It's no difference because you're a guy or a girl. I'm sure people would think that, to think that it's worse for a guy, a straight man, to be raped by a man, but it's not. It's just nobody wants to be raped. Nobody wants to be forced into having sex. Nobody wants to be violated, period. So the Levite comes out and was like, hey, there's his daughter and my wife. So now the Levite is offering his wife, like, hey, I'm offering my wife, we give you these 2 women, just don't touch me. Like, really? Dude, like, you came to save you came to save your wife. You traveled all that way to go back home to her father's house to come and get her. And this is how you gotta treat her. Why did you even come back for her if you didn't love her? I mean, I guess he thinks he loves her, but that's not love. Like, why couldn't you just take the L and get raped? So this is why her father didn't, you know, this guy must have been a mean guy, this Levite, because the father didn't want his daughter to go with him anyway. So he pushes his wife. She didn't offer herself up. He pushes his wife out the door and just leaves her out there. And then what's weird, what's strange is, like, they must think that a woman is like, her body is like for a guy, or her body is like automatically receives a guy no matter what. And it doesn't happen like that. We just don't automatically accept guys, you know. You have to be in love. You just can't just take a woman like it's okay. So the next day, well, not even the next day, after they was finished, they gang raped her so badly, this woman, that she had a hard time walking to the door of the old man. So when she got to the door, she tried to bang on the door, but her bangs were so weak that she collapsed right there in front of the door. So the next morning, her husband opens the door and he tells her, get up, we have to get moving. Get up, we have to get moving. Like, you ain't gonna let her wash, you ain't gonna let her take care of herself, you ain't gonna let her eat. Like, he just, like, with no heart, like, with no consideration to this woman. Like, remind you, he didn't want to get raped, so he knows how bad it is to be raped, but you're gonna tell her, oh, get up, let's just keep moving? Like, that's so wrong. That was so, like, so just to, like, whatever. So he tells her this, so she's not getting up or nothing. So he realizes that his wife is dead. So what he does is he picks up her dead body and takes her all the way back to the people of Israel. He takes her back to, he travels back home. So when he goes back home to, like, avenge his wife, right? Because instead of just trying to be a man and they could have died together that night. They could have just died together if he loved her so much, right? But no, he carries his wife's body home, and to get mad try to get his revenge on these people that gang raped his wife, he chops his wife's body up in 12 pieces, which sounds like the story of, it sounds like a story, it's in my head, but it sounds like a story, Egyptian story. So, sounds like a story I heard before. But he chops her up in like 12 pieces, right? And he sends her body, the 12 pieces of her body, he sends it to each tribe of Israel just to get them upset, because he wasn't upset himself, but for some reason he thinks that these guys is going to be upset for him. But hey, it worked. So they upset for him. So they got together, they got an army together, they went after the gang that raped his wife. And they caught up to this guy eventually. So a whole war was started because of this woman got raped. It was unnecessary. He could have got raped himself, or, you know what, you could have died together. Like, I mean, if you're gonna go to war, there's a chance you're gonna die anyway. So why couldn't you just do something, fight off? It is raining hard in Arizona today. So I think the guys that gang raped this woman was from the Benjamin tribe, the Benjamites. The Israelites wound up defeating them, and they took out 18. They wiped out 18 divisions. They killed their brothers. So now what's happening is that the children of Israel, the people of Israel, is at war with each other. Oh yeah, and so when there was a few men that fled from the Benjamites, and the people of Israel felt so bad because those are their brothers. They're part of the people of Israelite. So for those like few men that like fled, they had no wives to give them because all the women were spoken for, I guess, from all the people of Israel. So they went to this festival of like a neighboring nation, and they basically took wives for themselves. And when the guys approached them, like, why are you taking our women? They said something like, rather is rape them, or something crazy like that. Like, but yeah, the rest of the Israelites started to feel bad that they felt like a piece of the tribe was mentioned. Benjamin's tribe was missing. So that's what they did to get back with them. So the people, the 600 men that got away, they let them back into the congregation, and then they was part of Israelites again. So that's how it ended. That's what I got from the book of Judges. So, but it's just that's the way that the book of Judges ends. And it was so like, finally, like, these women are getting respect. The woman became justice. I think Lady Justice was introduced to us low key, and Chell, and you know, women was getting their props. They had songs, and for it to end like this woman gets gang raped at the end, it's like, okay, there you go. That was their little bit of hope that they had. I had another thought too. Also, I realized that where was the God of Israel when this woman was getting gang raped? It seems like the God of Israel only comes for war. He's only the God of Israel when it comes to war. So is this the God of war?